Thursday, June 18th, 2026. Yesterday would have been Curran's 32nd birthday. And I had forgotten what a crazy time it was. I think this is going to be a re-recording of yesterday's show. That February, March, and April of 2022, and with Curran passing on the 23rd of 2022, he had a serious lung infection or pneumonia, which didn't need to be as bad as it got, but because of the way hospitals were managed, and it's a long story, but he was hospitalized for quite a while before being released, I think in the first week of April 2022, before an old friend found him. Anyways, I had forgotten that the whole story of Ukraine biological laboratories, or laboratories in the nation of Ukraine, why do I always have to say nation of Ukraine? That were doing research related to biodefense, biowarfare, surveillance of any epidemiological, any conditions which could have warranted there being a food supply issue, an agricultural contamination. Now that Ukraine is in the news, because you might have heard that Tulsi Gabbard has declassified or announced that, yes, there have been some number, I think she said 140, maybe around the world, or 140 in Ukraine, research laboratories, biology research laboratories. And of course, anything like biology research can be used for a variety of things, including, I suppose, military, or even defense, or military defense, or civilian defense against foreign military efforts. So you always have this. Is it really is it dual use? I don't know. Again, I could collect a pile of sticks and say that I'm beginning to build a weapon to use to invade Canada. It doesn't really practically mean that it's real, but you could make a claim of just about anything, you know. Oh boy, this is not going quite as smooth as I had hoped. But so Tulsi Gabbard of DNI, Department of National Intelligence, she's resigning soon, and as of a week or over this past week, and again today is June 18th, 2026, she announced that indeed there really were these research laboratories. Yeah, you were right, America, or whoever was sharing that. Now, to review, several years ago now, I shared videos that were from the YouTube account for the United States Embassy in Kiev, Ukraine, which had several videos on it on the topic of science laboratories in Ukraine, biology laboratories, which had received, according to the video thumbnail picture and the contents of the video, some level of funding, even if it was just $20,000 from any United States agency. Most of those were something called the Nunn-Lugar Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, or Nunn-Lugar, named after Sam Nunn and Richard Lugar, two senators, one Democrat, one Republican, who spent a lot of time working with the former Soviet Union and the topic of nuclear weapon disarmament. And their efforts combined with the United States State Department efforts and negotiators from the United States, such as Dr. David Hamburg, who, by the way, daughter Margaret Hamburg went on to become the FDA director under Obama. But David Hamburg eventually resulted in the creation of a new agency, a new department with the United States military, called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, or the DTRA. So DTRA is a weird one because so many of its roots are in the United States State Department, of course, which implies connections with the embassies. And as it moved into the Pentagon, it maintains a weird conduit between itself and the United States State Department, which I think could create a matrix organizational problem for the people within the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. I've worked in corporate. Fortunately, I can bring experiences like this and understand that it's very difficult to have a very simple, clean tree structure. You can't have one person at the top managing all communication between all people in a massive machine. So you need to have all of these conduits, these matrix, and it becomes very difficult who actually has loyalty, and that could be a very bad thing, but it's a very pragmatic thing. Whose loyalty is to who, right? If you work managing a large project for a concrete company, and you are then subcontracted by a agency that wants to build a skyscraper, okay, who do you really report to? The boss that's hired you for that job at this company making the skyscraper, or the concrete company? Who's really the most important ally? Who do you share stuff with first? And this stuff probably goes back as old as time. There were probably people making the pyramids that they were still talking about this stuff. It is what it is. It's a problem as old as time, and it's one of the reasons why people, as capable as we are, we scale very poorly in groups. We just scale terribly. Anyways, I had this experience. I guess that's one way of saying it. And so this is this Defense Threat Reduction Agency, and we know that this Defense Threat Reduction Agency, is about 2,000 to 4,000 people, and although financially it's not a very big agency, I think it's $2 billion or $10 billion or something like that. They provide assistance for nuclear, against nuclear weapon development, nuclear weapon. They help nuclear weapon disarmament, to protect against all kinds of other weapons of mass destruction, cyber hacking, chemical weapons, biological weapons, and of course I have mixed feelings about which of those are even possible or not. But anyways, at the surface level, that's what the Defense Threat Reduction Agency is. And I shared videos from the YouTube page for the account for the United States Embassy of Kiev, which show that there were some laboratories, and these laboratories they were ridiculously small, and most of them were just like managing soil samples, or collecting dairy samples and looking for if there were any illnesses, anthrax, stuff like that. Some of them seemed to be only a few people. They were small offices and older government buildings, nothing fancy. And to call it a bioweapons program is a bit of a stretch. But again, you can make almost anything dual purpose. So now that Tulsi Gabbard has shared that, yeah, there really were laboratories. People are all fired up and they're mad at the military. They think that this means that there could have been United States could have made a virus which caused COVID, even though RNA can't pandemic. So you got that whole thing going on. But there was some initial disclosure stated that back in March of 2022, that came out in a hearing with Marco Rubio, then Senator, asking Victoria Nuland, who was, I think, a previous UN ambassador to NATO, about these laboratories. And she shared a little bit of information about this. Let me see. Do I have it on here? Give me a second here. I just had to reboot a bunch of these machines. No, I don't think I have it. I don't think I have it saved right here. And Victoria Nuland stated that, yeah, there really are laboratories. And it actually made it all the way to on March 10th, 2022, just a couple of days later. Let's see here. Tulsi Gabbard. This is what, 4 years ago right now, on the Tucker Carlson show here.
From Hawaii. We're happy to have her join us tonight. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So it's without even going into what they told us was Russian disinformation is actually true. How concerned are you that Victoria Nuland, who's overseeing this war, has just admitted there are unsecure bioagents, dangerous bioagents in Ukraine?
I'm extremely concerned, as should be every American and everyone in the world. The seriousness of this situation really can't be overstated. First of all, she didn't say no when she was asked by Marco Rubio.
And by the way, all anybody needed to do was to go on Google and search for a couple of the videos. There's videos which you can look inside these laboratories. Not all of them, but some of them. It is a joke to think that the security of the world is at risk because there's a temperature-controlled room in an old government building in Ukraine. It's absurd. And the videos are there. They were posted in 2012. Guys, they're out there. Now, some I think might have been taken down. The ones that are still in Ukrainian, they probably haven't picked up on it because they haven't been translated properly. They're still there. So and I've had these videos available. I've downloaded them and I've had them available on all my platforms now for years. So this isn't news. And all that happened was this was now verified, 4 years later? This here is 2022. They're talking about it like it's a big deal.
About there being biological or chemical weapons in Ukraine. So if there...
And it's not a biological weapon, for heaven's sake. For heaven's sake. I could leave out yogurt for a week. Does that turn it into a biological weapon? I mean, come on. This is absurd.
Were or are, obviously that would be a violation of the Biological Weapons Convention. Number two, they're categorically been trying to hide this, as you've laid out very...
They haven't been hiding it because the freaking videos have been on the YouTube. They're still on the YouTube page. They're still on the YouTube page. They're not hiding it. But I want to keep them. I want to remind everyone this is 2022. March 10th is the date of this show. Actually, March 9th. And I believe it was March 9th when Rubio was asking Victoria Nuland a question about this in a hearing, in a U.S. government hearing, and it was recorded. I don't have the clip in front of me right now, but look, 2011 report says Ukrainian facility deals with especially dangerous biological pathogens. Well, again, I'm not trying to defend anyone here, but most people have things in a refrigerator. Most people that if left outside could turn into something pretty bad that if you smear it in someone's face can cause them to get pretty sick. So this is, this is really stretching the definition. And why do they want to put this on Ukraine? I don't know. So that was March 9th, 2022. All right, 2022. So I have to make this one here full screen. So you can put that on the... Now, I'm trying to understand why, if going back on February 28th, 2022, in fact, I'll make it easy to find, okay? All you need to do is you need to go to UkraineBiolabs.com. UkraineBiolabs.com. and you get to my page here, here's the videos I've shared, okay? I posted it on, February 27th, 2022. It's my second video interview with Dilyana Gezincheva, Bulgarian journalist. And I've learned so much since this video. It's difficult to watch me in some of the things which I was still misstating all the way back then. I think I reached out to her for a couple of reasons. One is I've learned so darn much about the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, in particular, this American, I call him the Agent of India, Robert Malone, and his longtime relationship with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency that, according to the videos, which you can still view, was part of the overarching agency that had provided some funds to some of these jokes of little laboratories. All right. The bigger story that Dilyana was talking about was the research laboratory in Georgia, nation of Georgia, which also involved money from the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. I was also very interested in that. But at some point just before this, and I think it was on February 26th or 27th of 2022. Remember, this is February 27th, 2022. A story broke that Ukraine deleted their, or should I say, there was a website for the United States Embassy in Ukraine where they deleted a bunch of files related to some contracts about the U.S. supporting biological laboratories in Ukraine. And I think that became loud, okay, that supposed deletion. People were showcasing it on some tweets. And then I'm like, oh, wow. Well, I had spoken to this journalist back in 2020, Dilyana. I reached out to her on email. She got back to me, and I set this up really quick. And I was able to record it and clean it up and repost it. This was episode 364. And I think the posting date on YouTube is February 28th, 2022, but I recorded it as I show here on the 27th, 2022. All right. And, she was very happy. And I think, Dilyana, I believe, is a government agent. I don't know exactly who she works for. Maybe something related to some GRU or pro-Putin or something. I don't really know. I don't get it. In some ways, I don't care because I can't even figure out my own country. So I have no luck. I have no chance of understanding every other country if I can't even understand my own. Sometimes it helps to understand my own country by looking at it through a lens from the outside. So I guess there's some wins there, but I don't know who she works for. I didn't really understand this at the time. I'm just thinking that she's just a kick-ass independent journalist. All right. And I mean that I've gone through so much personal growth that if she is an agent, I'm not mad at her. Okay. I understand. I completely understand now that this is a influence game. This is an espionage game. This is a game where good people have to do a lot of nasty things in order to, get in front of the camera and influence, and sometimes tough decisions need to be made. I wish I had known back then, but I didn't. Anyways, Dilyana was very generous and kind with me. And I don't mean that in a like a flirty kind of way. I think she knew that I didn't know. I think she knew. Of course, she knows who she is. She knows who she works for. She understands all of these different camps and all of these different players and all of the foreign influence that is going on here. But I think she was realizing that I was actually just a guy in America and independent. Probably a pretty good analyst, given how far I've gotten. And I think I'm reading a lot into it. I think she kind of admired it. And And she probably felt a little bad for me. Okay. Now, also, doing interviews like this to independent people, I think to some extent is encouraged because it adds a little bit of credibility to journalists and other influencers if they talk to a bigger swath of people. And I don't think she works for an American group necessarily. She might, I don't know. So she wasn't properly warned when I asked for another interview that this is someone you really need to be cautious with. And I don't mean like I'm dangerous, but he's good. He's a professional analyst who's motivated by the right things and is actually independent. He's not going to try to trip you up or anything, but he's coming from a good place. Maybe Dilyana was an independent journalist at one point, and then realized that's just not the way these things work. If you actually want to make some money and pay bills, like Tim Pool recently announced, he makes millions. Tim Pool makes millions of dollars a year. So you can listen to my full interview, but the point I'm having to highlight that this is February 27th, and I believe, and this is something I had wrong yesterday, and I got a little air bubble. I might need to take a quick break here. Sometimes you swallow something, it doesn't go quite down the right way. I believe, now it's all I can think about. She thought, okay, I scheduled this interview because it was February 27th, and it was a response to it having come out that they deleted a bunch of files, supposedly, allegedly. Again, if you want to attract attention to something, all you need to do is claim files were deleted, and everyone's on it. So that's an easy thing to set up. So that's why I reached out to her, and that's why we had that interview. And I slightly mischaracterized it yesterday, thinking that somehow I had kickstarted a series of additional interviews that other people needed to have with Dilyana because no one was talking about Ukraine. And that's incorrect. The story of Ukraine, I think it was already being planted that they were going to elevate these laboratories. Elevate the story that there were potentially biolabs in Ukraine. One of the data points that I can use to get that is that Dan Cohen on Mint Press News, where he was praising Whitney Webb, by the way, on February 25th, just before he, or I should say, just before it was announced that Ukraine deleted a bunch of stuff, he had on Scott Ritter. Okay. No, that's not the one I want here. Come on. We can do this one. Okay. Copy link address. And then I want to go up here. I want to do a Control V. And excellent. Actually, that's not the one I want either. I want this one from February 25th. So Dan Cohen is talking with Scott Ritter here on the day before the United States Embassy for Ukraine, or Kiev, is going to delete files related to biolabs. Dan Cohen is talking with Scott Ritter. Now, Scott Ritter is an American. I believe he's American. He's married to a Georgian woman, by the way. They've been married a long time, but he married a Georgian woman back in the 1990s who's Russian but grew up in Georgia, nation of Georgia. Scott Ritter is described as the United Nations weapon inspector, and that's how he describes himself. He was involved in going to Iraq specifically, back in the 1990s to oversee their uranium enrichment and potential nuclear weapon development or weapon development deterrence, whatever. And he has been in a lot of places. And he keeps popping up in shows like this. Now, Dan Cohen should know, because Dan Cohen is responsible for helping me understand that in 1999, a new magazine was launched by Tina Brown and Harvey Weinstein called Talk Magazine. All right, Talk Magazine was launched, funded by Miramax and Harvey Weinstein, and they hired Tucker Carlson. Funny how Tucker Carlson is so involved in this story. Remember, I just showed you that Tucker Carlson is the person talking with what's her name, Tulsi Gabbard. So here we are, 24 years after the initial episode of Talk. We have Tucker Carlson again. Now, the reason why the fact that Scott Ritter is so odd is because Scott Ritter is in the very first issue of Talk Magazine. He actually writes an op-ed, and then he's in the second magazine responding to somebody. Scott Ritter is in the first 2 issues of Talk Magazine. What are the odds? Remember, issue 1 was September 1999, and issue 2 was October of 1999. Remember, their launch party was held on Liberty Island and attended by Henry Kissinger. This is no ordinary magazine, folks. You don't have a pre-9/11 kickoff magazine with Hillary Clinton on the cover and George Bush and Gwyneth Paltrow with Tina Brown, funded by Harvey Weinstein, with your launch party on Liberty Island, attended by Henry Kissinger 3 weeks after the death of JFK Jr. This is no ordinary magazine. It's the only magazine that has an expose of both Ehud Barak as well as Osama bin Laden pre-9/11. This is no ordinary magazine, and it's so sad that people would rather take the money than show you real evidence. But they do. They would rather take the money and talk about Epstein. Remember, Epstein is basically promoted by Tina Brown. Matter of fact, Talk Magazine, as it was rebranded, the staff went over to a new thing called Radar. Jeffrey Epstein once owned the staff of this magazine. But I guess no one finds it interesting enough to talk about. Anyways, no anonymous whistleblowers here, everybody. I don't deal with whistleblowers. You put it out in ink, use a video camera, you say what you know publicly and put it on record. There's anonymous whistleblowers, my ass. So, he's talking with Scott Ritter, who's in the Talk Magazine orbit. Now, what's also wild about Scott Ritter is he's also in a book that came out on September 9th, 2001 called Germs, written by Judith Miller, as well as Stephen Engelberg and William Broad. Scott Ritter is in a book that came out on September 9th, 2001, prominently featuring Joshua Lederberg, by the way. Also, talking about the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. As a matter of fact, Scott Ritter is in the book that came out on September 9th, 2001, where the very first sentence is about vaccinating the United States military against anthrax using experimental gene therapy vaccines. How about that? And it even talks about the Human Genome Project. So Dan Cohen has quite the interview here with Scott Ritter the day before it's announced that Ukraine deleted some files from their website, or the United States Embassy to Ukraine deleted some files from the website. Quite a good job, Dan. Really good score. Now, putting that on the calendar here, all right, that is, so that's Dan Cohen, Scott Ritter, February 25th. February 26th, Ukraine, or I should say, United States Embassy to Ukraine removed documents from embassy website. On February 27th, 2022, I had my second interview with Dilyana Getsenchieva. I posted it on February 28th, 2022. Now, I guess this issue was really going to be a hot issue, because then on February 1st, look who races to then have a conversation with her. I can't say his name. You know, if you want to talk to Americans, just call yourself George and call it a day. All right, I can say George, but it's horse. I don't know. It's I don't care. But geopolitics and empire, and he's interviewed, the Scott O'Loughlin or John O'Loughlin's and blah blah blah, and of course the Corbetts and the Whitney Webbs. I think they've all had conversations with him too. A lot of time talking about how Israel owns the United States and America is shit. That's kind of the things that he talks a lot about. So, but he doesn't he lives in Mexico. I don't understand. Look, I'm frustrated right now. I talk a lot about my frustrations with some aspects of the Indian government being complicit in the opioid epidemic of the United States of America. But I dare you to turn into my past episodes, and I'm up to 1,550 right now. And aside from maybe a few moments that I regret because I was probably stupid, I don't crap on other countries. If another country is ruled by a dictator, whatever, if they have to choose their own way. That's up to them, whatever they're doing internally. All right? Who am I to judge? I don't understand. Why would I make a podcast where I did nothing but bash another country? First off, I'm in my own country, which is supposedly the richest country in the world, and I can't even have a salary doing this. I imagine it would be even worse if I spent all my time talking about another country. I don't get it. Just mind your own beeswax, dude. But anyways, now he is going to be interviewing Dilyana, and this is happening 36 hours after I reached out and had my conversation with Dilyana Getsencheva. So this is the full interview. It's available on Odyssey. Then on March 2nd, Scott Ritter is again talking with someone at Mint Press News. And then on March 4th, let's see, hopefully I can get this one here. On March 4th, Dan Cohen is having an interview with both Scott Ritter I'm not sure this one works. He's trying to have an interview with both Scott Ritter and Dilyana Getsencheva. All right. I think it wound up not working. This one was from March 4th, 2022. He wound up having a technical issue where he wasn't able to get Dilyana on the phone, and then he rescheduled for later on. So now this is March 4th. Now remember, now Dan Cohen is talking about the labs as if they're real, and again he has on Scott Ritter, who, let me remind you again, is in the Tina Brown, Harvey Weinstein-funded 1999 issue of Talk magazine, which was launched on Liberty Island. Launch party attended by Henry Kissinger, was launched 3 weeks after the death of John F. Kennedy Jr., has Hillary Clinton on the cover, has hired Tucker Carlson as an editor or a contributing editor. And by the way, the other woman on the cover who's scantily clad is Gwyneth Paltrow, who, let me remind you, 20 years later becomes patient zero. 11 years later becomes patient zero in the movie called Contagion. First person to die in the movie Contagion. And then 20 years later is one of the early COVID survivors. It was one of the first people in the United States of America to actually catch COVID and live. Come on, everybody. This stuff is so scripted. I don't know if Dan knows it or not, but he is in the middle of it. He should have known it. He should have told me all this stuff when he talked with me, when I was wasting time talking with him. He should have told this stuff to me. But, given the death of our son on April 23rd, 2022, the day after Jessica Rose went on a show and said that opioids aren't killing young people, maybe it just escaped me that, all of these people might have been lying to me around the same time that he died. So then we have on March 9th, 2022, that is when, March 8th or March 9th, that's when Victoria Nuland answers a question that, yeah, maybe there's some money going to a laboratory in Ukraine. People go crazy. And then there's even more news. Then Dan Cohen interviews Dilyana on March 9th, 2022. It's a terrible interview. And then there's a few more people talking with Dilyana Gaysencheva, including this man, Medhurst. Let me see if I can actually pop this one up. So this is a British guy. Copy link address. Who has done some crazy long interviews. Okay, here he is. If he let his hair grow longer, he's like a combination of a Middle Eastern English rock and roll motorcycle driver who could almost, with an eye patch, he could be on Pirates of the Caribbean. He has a 2-hour discussion with Dilyana. Now, one uncomfortable thing about these Dilyana interviews is that she wears the same shirt for all of them. Now, she's a lovely looking woman, and it's a very low neckline shirt. But as a guy, I wake up, I throw on a shirt. It's got, the collar is kind of ripped up. Guys can get away with just being slobs. We shouldn't be. We'd be respected more if we dress up, but things are what they are right now, okay? And when it comes to women's styles, it's usually frowned upon to wear the same shirt all the time. That's just the norm. Maybe it's different in Europe, in Bulgaria, but in America, you need to, because my wife's worked corporate, okay? I've had friends who work corporate. You need to have guys can get away with 2 or 3 suits. With the women, you need to have like a 2, 3, 4 week rotation. It sucks, okay? It's just one of those things. I don't know if it could ever be changed. Maybe it shouldn't ever be changed. But Dilyana chooses not to change her shirt. She wears this shirt all the time. And again, it's not that it's a bad shirt, but it's unusual. It's definitely unusual. Women choose to wear different shirts. And she wears this one shirt from my very first interview, and she wears the same shirt every other interview she does for the next 3 weeks. I'm not sure she's ever done that before in her career. Maybe she has, but in this case, this is what she's doing. 1 second here. Huh, that's interesting. That's an interesting one to put on the timeline, huh? 1 second here. Yeah. So she wears the same shirt all the time for all these other interviews, which, okay. So the next one that I just started to show you here is with this British guy, and his name is I just go Medhurst, Medhurst. And this was from March 13th, 2022. She's always in the same location. That I understand. I mean, once you get your podcast studio set up, you don't want to be moving around. Okay. And that falls right around here. Now, there were other people. Who are those ass clowns? Oh, that's right. John Cullen and Jason Goodman on March 6th threw their ideas into the ring about the Biolabs. There's really not much to add. Now, remember, this Goodman guy, I think, broadcasts from Thailand. So, again, everyone's worried about campaign finance reform, but most Americans right now, or many Americans, are influenced by people on the internet. So foreign governments can influence what the United States thinks right now simply by paying podcasters. And the better English podcasters talk, the more money they can make. There's millions of people in India that to be quite frank, aside from an accent, can speak better English technically than many Americans. I wish that wasn't true. So some people may see that as having a racist jab. It's actually it's a compliment. It's an embarrassment. It's a confession. I wish that wasn't true, but it is what it is. Okay, that's where we're at right now in the United States. We have some serious vulnerabilities in our future generations, and it's getting worse. But they have their show on March 6th, and they make no progress. Of course, they could say, wow, Mark Kulak is doing pretty good work, but their job is to make sure I am never seen. They are paid money and get fake clicks and fake subscribers, so I'm not seen. That's the job. And the reason why I'm putting so much focus on the shirt, okay, is, well, some people think it may actually be different rooms. That she may actually be in different rooms. I suspect what had happened was she was not alerted to the fact that there was going to be a highly competent analyst who was in the ring here fighting, who was truly independent. Now, her guard may have been down because as an American first, and America looking inward, I'm not out with a pointed blade at either Russia or Ukraine. I don't care. So it would be very easy to see me as someone who was pro-Russia because I'm not out to take swipes at Russia. I'm not out to take swipes at China or the UN or NATO or really anyone. And the more I learn, the more I realize I'm not qualified to. So I snuck right in and I had the first interview. It was me. So I suspect they had to re-record her interviews with a bunch of other people to dilute my interview. That's one of the reasons why I believe she had to wear the same shirt. I think Dilyana showed me a lot of respect. I think she was very humble and sincere when she said she thought it was very cool. And in fact, her introduction on mine seemed to be more effusive and more real than any other of the interviews. The rest of them, they're very job-like. Again, I understand. It's too late for me right now to ever become part of this game. I'm too established. But I understand why people get involved into these intelligence games and have to become influencers and journalists and whatever and podcasters. I get it. And it's a career. You become part of a soldier, sort of. I don't take it personally, but I think I also, in some ways, ruined her career because I'm going to show you something. Yesterday, I said that Dilyana has not been broadcasting anymore. And one of the reasons why I needed to re-record my show from yesterday is because that was incorrect. If you go to YouTube and if you search for, I'm going to show videos of Dilyana from after March and April 2022, okay? Okay, this one was from... Oh, here's another good one, by the way. On March 22nd, Chinese government media interviewed her. Chinese government media interviewed her. This is CGTN in French. Now, of course, this thing may be a front just because they say they're the French Chinese media. That doesn't mean it's real, but that definitely doesn't look good, okay? It doesn't look good because Americans can get into a lot of trouble if they're colluding with a foreign government such as China. Come on, I'm trying to find. Okay, so this is war and propaganda. No, I don't want that one. Okay, so this is war and... That's Richard Medhurst. I can't play that one. That's this one 6 years ago. Hang in there. I should have indexed them. They obviously don't have a ton of views. Oh, that's not it. The main reason why I want to play it is all of her videos after a certain date are in Russian. And okay, we're getting there. I'm seeing some of the Russian ones pop up, some of the Georgian ones popping up here. Oh, here someone actually did a video for check this one out. This is actually they did they were going to call it DTRA.
It is like the problem of Holocaust.
May 26, 2022.
Yes, this is a huge problem, a huge threat, a huge danger. We have repeatedly expressed serious
Oh, wow. Someone from India. That's weird.
concern. Biolabs became a cash cow, meaning that if you came up with any
And that's Scott Ritter. So someone was going to make a movie called DTRA. Wow. That's crazy. Okay, I think we're getting closer right now. There's a ton of interviews of Dilyana over the last 3 or 4 years, but they're almost totally in Russian or Georgian. I'm not sure I could tell the difference between the two languages. And I'm just going to scroll for a little while longer. I guess you're just going to have to take my word for it for a moment. Here we go. This is 2 years ago.
Защо го казвам? Защото Израел отказва да спре в момента бомбардировките, за да бъдат освободени цивилните заложници.
I'm just going to fast forward a little bit.
По време на войната Кадафи все още беше жив, аз отразявах Бенгази, тази част.
Now, strange, she's wearing the same shirt. She's getting a lot of miles out of that shirt. Or maybe they only sell one shirt in Bulgaria. Maybe that's it. They're actually all different shirts, but I'm sorry to be ragging on the shirt so much. No pun intended. This is a different location, clearly. And you can tell how much more relaxed she is. She gets to speak her native language here. I imagine it must be really tough having to speak with authority and accuracy in a foreign language. This was from 2 years ago, I believe, or 2 or 3 years ago is when this was posted. She hasn't done a video in English since March of 2022. Her last Twitter post was September of 2022. I can actually show it here. No, that's actually not the link I wanted. Her last tweet was September 29th, 2022. Of course, this could be a managed account by this point. The attack on the Nord Stream pipeline, which I never did a single show on. I can only get pulled in so many different directions. I'm just an independent. It's just me. Aside from that, if you go to her site, her pinned tweet was last updated March 10th, 2022. And other than that, we have the Ukraine sites. February 26th, 2022 is when she announced that things were taken off of the embassy site. Now, why would she know things were taken off the embassy site on that day? Is she checking every day? I have a massive archive, but I do not check every day if everything that I've ever archived is still online or not. I would only know if something was taken offline if I went to look for it or if someone told me, which means someone probably told her it was taken offline, so she reported on it, right? So it could have been taken offline that morning, could have been taken offline a month ago, and nobody noticed it until that day. I don't know. I don't think we have the answer, but again, I don't think she would have discovered it herself, and that's not criticism because the things that I archive, if someone took them offline, I wouldn't notice it myself either until someone told me about it or I looked. So that means that, there's guidance coming from somewhere else. Anyways, going back to the timeline here, boy, this is another new feature now. We got this mouse pointer with this trailing thing. This must be new stuff from a software upgrade. Interesting. I should play around with this more before I just click the live button. Now, let's see here. So then more interesting things happen after that. Okay, and this is what I covered yesterday a little bit. In April of 2022, Ron Johnson and RFK Jr. both reached out to Jonathan Cooey, PhD, on the same day and started a process where eventually by mid-April of 2022, Jonathan Cooey had agreed to take a job with Children's Health Defense. Now, Children's Health Defense was set up, I mean, we've covered their weird, sad history, with especially noting that they just don't make any progress and chew up millions and millions of dollars. But Jonathan Cooey, if you look at the top of the list here, was on my list because I had my second interview with him on February 20th of 2022. As I stated yesterday, I liked him. I didn't know why. He's much cooler than most people I get to be friends with, at least from what I could tell online. He seemed to be pretty sincere. And at that time, I had no idea how many people were lying to me. No idea. So I wasn't really looking for people that I could trust at that time because I didn't know I was being boxed in and lied to at every angle. I had no idea how this game works. But I liked him, and it just felt like there was something more real and sincere there, okay, than was happening anywhere else. I can't tell you why, but I had a good feeling about it, and I enjoyed speaking with him. And I'll also tell you, a lot of people around me said, don't trust him, which I found odd. But I didn't really know what to make of it, okay? In fact, it probably rattled me a little bit, to be quite honest with you, because I didn't understand how many people around me were coordinatedly lying to me. I'll bet you the same thing was happening with Jonathan as well. But I had my second interview with him, 106.2. That was, I posted it on February 20th, 2022. And then some of these George Webb people try to get me to do 2 hours every other day of a video with this neighborhood news. So I'm starting that around February 24th. And I bring this up because if you go down the list a little bit here, okay, after this surge of my interview with Dilyana, and then all of these other people wanting to talk to Dilyana, Scott Ritter coming in and having all of these conversations with these people. Remember Scott Ritter, Germ's book, September 9th, 2001. Scott Ritter, first and second issue of Talk Magazine, 1999. Scott Ritter is coming in also talking to all of these people. And then, like magic, Ron Johnson and RFK Jr., both connected to Robert Malone, Dr. Robert Malone, agent of India, United States, noteworthy because Robert Malone, Robert Malone's network also includes, apparently, people at the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. So I was talking a lot about Robert Malone throughout December 2021, January 2022, February 2022, and his DTRA connections. And now we're talking about the Defense Threat Reduction Agency and some money going to laboratories in Ukraine. So some Robert Malone friends then reach out, Ron Johnson and RFK Jr., to Jonathan Cooey in April. They have some conversations, and then he gets a job. And then he's entangled, which feels like a good thing. Of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, Robert Malone's in that network, but good luck to him. Now, one of the things that Jonathan Cooey is over this time, and remember, he actually gets visits from people like, what's his name? Charles Rixey comes to his house sometime in April of 2022, sits on his couch. Charles Rixey used to be with the United States State Department as well. Remember, the State Department controls embassies. And Charles Rixey and other people at CHD seem to want Jonathan Cooey to be working over time. They want him working up to a book that says there was a lab leak in China. That more than anything else, that's what so many people around Cooey want him to be thinking. Diffuse report, lab leak in China. It takes a few months to get there, but they're taking him in that direction. Oh, and then Jessica Rose, April 22nd, gets on a show, says opioids aren't killing young people. After his long time in the hospital, Curran is out. He gets to see his daughter a couple times, and then he dies of an overdose on April 23rd, 2022. And that's the one time Narcan wasn't there for him. Dan Cohen continues on after April 27th and other times to talk with Lee Camp. We know who he is a little bit anyways. And then for my next couple of months, May and June, we're thinking about the memorial and about being rocked now as grandparents. So this was quite a time. A lot of things happened here. Now, Dan Cohen first reached out to Jonathan Cooey like 3 or 4 months after this. I believe it was in August of 2022. I don't have that on the list yet. But then Dan Cohen starts to work with Jonathan Cooey. I mean, after another year or two later, Dan Cohen then reached out to me, and I did a blog post with him. And I don't know. And this is just a start, okay? I really only started like early yesterday putting these ideas together. It's not like this all just happened. This is I know there's years of work that of background work here, but I can't quite understand that there's still something here that I'm missing. There's something here that I'm missing. And we're going to figure it out. Oh, yeah, February 2022, Jessica Rose, I think, was on the Jonathan Cooey show. It's amazing. No, that was 2023. It's amazing how and Jessica Rose, I have that one still queued up here. If you go to Houstonic.live, and it was I'll think of the guy's name. I know he was an associate of Robert Malone. No, not him. It was Daryl Rickey. Daryl Rickey of MIT. Daryl Rickey of MIT and Robert Malone. Wow. Daryl Rickey in July 2006 worked on something called genomic approaches to drug discovery. That would have been helpful for the Domain project. And he had a September 19th, 2000 presentation. I'm not even going to get into that one. Where was it here? Yeah, on March 3rd, 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic, a report came out, a white paper called Medical Countermeasures Analysis of the 2019 Novel Coronavirus and Vaccine Risks for ADE, or Antibody-Dependent Enhancement. It was posted on March 3rd, 2020, and contained 140 references. That's an impressive document to make that fast and post that early. But what's more curious is that if you dig in to some of the metadata, you'll see that the initial posting for it was in January, meaning that in 2019, Robert Malone and Daryl Rickey had already written the novel coronavirus vaccine risks for antibody-dependent enhancement. It was already written in 2019, everybody. Robert Malone then goes on to, coach Jessica Rose, and then Jessica Rose co-authors a vaccine adverse event VAERS report with the same Daryl Rickey. Of course, she then famously goes on an April 22nd show in 2022 in the middle of all of this and says opioids aren't killing young people. So Jessica Rose is a Canadian-Israeli woman who is influencing what Americans think. Americans are making decisions about which pharma companies to be mad at, which military agency to be mad at, which government official to be mad at, and who to vote for, and why their children died, based upon someone from Canada and Israel who's working for someone who has a vaccine company in India, agent of India, Robert Malone, also working for a daughter of a previous prime minister of India, who's also doing shows with someone in Japan, Kevin McCarran, I believe. Kevin McCarran, who's married to an Indian woman, who's also doing shows with another American who's living in Japan right now. What's his name? Paul Cottrell. They're probably promoting the Canadian Viva Frei, and I could just go on and on and on. I, as an American, doesn't make me a better person, but I'm an American. I'm born in the United States. My parents were born in the United States. My grandparents were born in the United States. My roots go back on the continent before the nation was even created. I'm in America. I'm an analyst. I'm a professional. I may not look it right now, and I'm as deep in this as anyone, but I can't get promoted. Instead, you and I in the past, admittedly, have been influenced by people around the world who can speak English on the internet, pretending to be Americans, saying that we need to defend Trump or hate Trump or whatever, or fighting with anonymous accounts that claim to be big-bosomed, young, fertile, white American women who love Jesus and guns who live in Ohio. That's really Vitashi or something like that, working out of Mumbai or New Delhi in India. If you can't being an American does not make someone better, but you should not be listening to anybody that doesn't have roots this deep and an investment this big in this country. So the main reason, among the main reasons why I needed to re-record this from yesterday, when the bigger mistakes I made was that Dilyana didn't do anything after March of 2022. Not true. She has done a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews, but they're all in Russian or Georgian. So I can't understand them. I might be able to translate a few of them, maybe take the transcript and repost it or something, but I don't think it's necessary. I believe there's a reason why she's not communicating in English anymore. I think it's because if you do a compound search of her, you're going to find me in the United States. People in other countries will never know about me, all right? But within the United States, she can't be used that way anymore. I apologize to her for that. Obviously, it was nothing personal. Here we are. Okay, here we are. And regarding these Ukraine labs, I've not provided evidence that there's no way a biological weapon isn't made in any of them. How could anyone provide such an evidence? But there's an abundance of evidence that there's a lot of information available about them that show that they are not, that they've been known about for a long time and they're not military. even if they received a couple of dollars from the Nunn-Lugar threat reduction program. Meanwhile, the issue of the drug epidemic in the United States continues to go with very little fanfare. People are still encouraged to talk Epstein, whatever, Israel, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm getting into just bigger summaries, which I don't really need to do right now. So, it's a very sobering time for me to have all of this stuff on a timeline. And like I said yesterday, this stuff is not fun. Okay. This is not find the truth, expose the truth anymore. I can't see how. Look, you have to laugh. You have to have some gallows humor. But I can't see how people such as a Candace Owens could be having so much fun and laughing so hard. I don't get it. Other than she knows, for example, Charlie Kirk wasn't even killed. But anyways, now I'm just way off the script here as far as what I wanted to talk about today. So you guys have to figure it out yourselves. Are you in this because you want to know what's going on and you're an American? Again, I'm not here because America's the best ever, but I am here to represent my country. And you're willing to share and promote things even if they're not popular and may make your heroes look bad, or I don't know. I don't even know how to wrap it up. So thanks for listening. I'm just going to quit it right there.